Good morning. So my boss did not know that was going to happen, and he just, I think, swore at me under his breath. Dean Metcalf and President Jessup and I chatted about this, and since, as they indicated to you, today should be a lot about connections, we thought that we would tinker with your program a little bit and that I would introduce my boss. Connections are important to us. As some of you know, we have known each other for a long time. When someone wants to say something nasty about me, sometimes they say that I am Brian Sandoval's friend. I'm proud to be Brian Sandoval's friend, and I'm proud to work for him. I came with him 5 years ago when he became governor, and I watched him struggle with the budget crisis at that time, and I watched him defray the things he wished to do for education in the great state because he was faced with an economy that needed his immediate triaged attention. And so he did that. I think he did it right. I think each session he has gotten progressively better. But I'll tell you a story now that he probably won't tell you because he's more modest. About in February of 2014, I was serving as the superintendent of public instruction, and the governor called me at home one night in February and said, listen, I'm tired of being on all of the bad lists, and we have a generational opportunity with what's happening in economic development, Tesla being the hallmark at that time. And he said, so I need a plan. We'll work out the revenue, he said. I need a plan. And if you're a bureaucrat or anyone in business, having your boss simply tell you, I need a plan, and then to follow it up with saying, be as bold as you can be. You don't hear those words very often from a boss. So for the folks at the Department of Education and the governor's office and the governor's budget office, the next few months were very busy. So I want to recognize Steve Canavero and Dina Dorish, Julia Teska, who was the budget director at the time, Minnie Martini, who works at the department, Mike Wilden, Jackie Bryant, Michonne Martin. All of those people worked for months on what became the governor's legislative agenda, both on the revenue side and the many education programs that he'll discuss with you. We went back to the governor in July. He made some personal adjustments. We came back to the governor in November following a dramatic change in the control of the legislature, which required him to make further adjustments. But throughout that year, he supported his staff in the development of what he knew was a generational opportunity. That is a gift if you are staff, and for Nevadans, that is an unbelievable demonstration of leadership. So I am proud to be your friend. I have worked around or for political people and have been married to a political family been around those folks since I was 15. Never have I worked with someone like this. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your kickoff speaker, my friend, and our governor, the Honorable Brian Sandoval.
Good morning, everybody. And I didn't swear, I said you turkey. It really is a privilege and honor for me to be here today. And it's very inspiring for me to see all of you come out this early in the morning. And a few words about Dale, and he didn't go into the specifics, but some of you may know this. We've known one another since second grade. We were in a little second grade classroom in Fallon, Nevada at Northside Elementary School. Our teacher was Mrs. Erb. And we often visit schools, and we tell you to look at the person who's sitting next to you because one of you is going to become governor and one's going to become the state superintendent of schools. But I like to refer to Dale as my first friend. And indeed he was when the first time that I came to Nevada. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we did this legislative session, but the person who deserves the credit, the architect of putting all this educational program together is Dale Urquiaga. Please give him a big hand. And a little bit about the president. and I appreciate your kind remarks, Mr. President. And he alluded to the trade mission. And I've told this story once before, but I have to tell it again because I thought it was very revealing on the character and brilliance of this man. So we were on our trade mission, and we were in Dresden, Germany. And I had my schedule, and I had my, what I needed to do that day, and they had told me, you're going to be meeting with my equivalent, the governor of that state in Germany, and we're going to have a roundtable discussion. So we walk into this room, and it's in a building that was over 100 years old, very ornate, very high ceilings. It was about half the size of this, had this massive table in a horseshoe with nameplates for every single person that was attending with a microphone. And I'm sitting next to this governor of Germany, and we're chit-chatting before. And I look at his notes, and sorry, I was eavesdropping a little bit, but and anyway, all his notes were in perfect English. And I said, wow, your notes are in English. He says, yes, I speak 5 different languages, and fluently. And that was very impressive. And he said, well, Governor, this is how I kind of see this thing going. So I'm going to make a speech. You're going to speak for 15 minutes, and I hadn't even been scheduled to speak, which was fine. And then I'm going to make a presentation, and we're going to feature some of our academic institutions and what we do for economic development. Well, it had been put on our agenda that we didn't have a role to play. So as politely as I could, I'm texting to the side of the governor saying, we've got to get the president of UNLV up there to talk, to show what Nevada has to offer. And of course, he has no idea, and he gets the message. And in just a short amount of minutes, he goes up there and makes this presentation, features this wonderful university, UNLV, features this wonderful state, and just an extraordinary job that you did. And I thought to myself, wow, did we ever make the right choice for the president of this university? So I'm proud to call you my friend, and it really was fun sitting at the basketball game. And I'm learning this Rebels thing, and because as many of you may know, I graduated from a school about 500 miles north of here, the school up north. But let's get to the topic at hand here, and this summit. I mean, it really offers us an opportunity to pause and reflect about all the implementation work that's being accomplished here throughout Nevada to transform our system of education as a result of all the initiatives that were adopted during this 2015 legislative session. And I know many folks have described this session as being historic. And I'm hoping it is, and I'm hoping it will be, but time will tell. And only the history books, obviously, will be able to tell us whether it was. But before I get into my formal remarks, I want to talk about the historical significance of today's date. I think you all realize 74 years ago today that Hawaii, Pearl Harbor was attacked, an event that galvanized our nation. And of course, this tragic event galvanized a nation, and it inspired a new generation of men and women who overcame extraordinary obstacles and carried our nation through one of its darkest hours. We've come to refer to that generation as America's greatest generation. And again, if I may tell a little anecdote, but not too long ago, a gentleman, his name was Charles Sahi. Now think about this gentleman. He's 5'4", or in 1941, he was 5'4", 120 pounds, 17 years old. He was on the deck of the USS Nevada, which was the only ship to get underway at Pearl Harbor. And he was up in one of those crow's nests above the ship. And so you got to think about that for a second. And it was his dream, and he was present at the attack on Pearl Harbor. You all know the story of the USS Nevada. It did get underway, but it took some heavy, heavy blows from torpedoes and bombs, and they had to intentionally beach the ship, or else it was going to block the channel and block the entire USS, or the United States fleet. They ultimately were able to repair the USS Nevada, and it was at the invasion of Normandy, it was at Okinawa, and it was at Iwo Jima. They dropped an atomic bomb on the ship, and it still didn't sink. And ultimately, they had to sink it in a very deep part of the ocean. But in any event, Mr. Sehi had never been to Nevada. And here's this 94 or 93-year-old man, it was his dream to come to Nevada. And fortunately, some very generous Nevadans were able to sponsor his trip here. And he came and he visited my office where I have the ship's wheel from the USS Nevada above my desk. But he was symbolic for me of America's greatest generation. But the best part of it is he wrote me a letter when he got back home to Minnesota. And he talked about education in this letter because he took advantage of the GI Bill and ultimately became a professor at Mankato State in Minnesota. But he said that it was education that changed his life and enabled him to be able to teach generations of students about what it meant to make those types of sacrifices and what education could do to change somebody's life. So just briefly, I would ask, we're still in very difficult times. We all know that. Our Nevada National Guard is still deploying hundreds of soldiers overseas. We just saw 25 men and women go to Afghanistan, and we're going to be sending another couple hundred within the next few months overseas. So if you would all take a moment now for a moment of silence to think of them and remember them in your thoughts and prayers, as well as all of our veterans that have bravely served our country. Thank you. Dean, I want to thank you for putting this summit together. The Dean reached out to Dale not long ago and asked if I would be interested in participating in this, and I said, let me think. Yes, of course, I wanted to be part of it. But this College of Education is essential in being a partner in terms of making all these things happen. And I particularly want to thank you for the way that you've embraced the Teach Nevada scholarship in that program. We all know that we have a crisis, a teacher shortage here in Clark County and throughout the state. And your willingness to take that program on and be able to develop and produce high-quality teachers for the future is just incredible. So, Dean, thank you very much. And please give him a big hand. So I'm really honored to begin today's conversation about education. And this is personal for me. I've had the opportunity to visit over 200 schools in our state. And when you go to a little school in Austin, Nevada, and their entire enrollment for their high school is 4 kids, and you meet their K through 8, and I think it was between 15 and 20 kids, and then you come here to Clark County and you go to Green Valley High School or any of the other high schools, Valley High School, and there are 3,000 plus children and students. It kind of gives you a feel for the diversity in our state. So I guess to begin, I'd like to start talking about the 2015 legislative session and provide a quick recap. So in the State of the State address in January, and as I said, the architect is here, we laid out 26 new education proposals related to public education. And it's not boasting. There is not a more comprehensive education package in the United States of America. And frankly, we were really hopeful that if we could get half of them, that we could make a really big difference. But with the support of the legislature, with the everything that happened, we were able to pass 25 of 26 education bills. Thank you. And then toward the end of the session, we added those Teach Nevada scholarships as well as new teacher incentives. And as I said, to say the least, it was very aggressive. So the entire package focused on two primary components: the chronic underperformance in too many of Nevada's schools. None of us needs to rehash the data surrounding all the bad lists on which we've found ourselves. And second, we set out to modernize a system of governance and school finance that was largely created half a century ago when Nevada was a very different place. And we like to talk about that our financing system at that time, the entire state's population was less than the student population that we have now. And as you know, the demographics have changed dramatically. So we focused on several areas. First was early learning. We wanted to reach Nevada's earliest and youngest learners, enable them to begin their academic journey with every possible advantage. First was to match a federal preschool grant to ensure that the poorest 4-year-olds in Nevada got a solid start. And as a result of that, and that was, over time is going to be several $1 million, we're able to add thousands of new preschool seats in our state. We also expanded all-day kindergarten to every school in Nevada. Thank you. And it wasn't just that, it was reducing class sizes in kindergarten as well. And as I said, I've visited a lot of schools, and I specifically target the kindergarten class and the first grade class when I visit those schools. And I talk to those kindergarten teachers, and they tell me, because I ask them, how's it going? Is this really making a difference? And I tell them, be honest. And frankly, the response to me is, really? Are you kidding me? I get a child, instead of for 2.5 hours a day, for a full day. Many of them are getting them reading in the first semester when some of them weren't even able to get that the entire day. I visited a school here in Clark County. I believe there were 20 students or so there. In that class alone, there were 8 different languages from the students that were in that class. Think about that challenge previously, having children that speak 8 different languages, and you have them for 2.5 hours a day with 30 plus kids in the classroom. That's part of this transformation that this all-day K is going to have. Also, implementing a read by 3 new law to get that done. And again, it's one of those issues for me. These kids, if they're not at grade level and reading at grade level by the time they hit 3rd grade, they're constantly in this cycle of trying to catch up. So that's why that was an extremely important issue for me. I'm going to try to move through these as quickly as I can because I have something in my brain with regard to what I've seen for every one of them. Middle school and high school. We recognize the need to better equip and prepare the students already in the education system and to give them 21st century tools to succeed in a 21st century economy. So we included more support for kids in middle school so that they can have devices. And again, we talked, Dale talked about Tesla and all these companies that are coming here. There is a new economy, and we have to prepare our kids for that. And so we have to invest in technology for the students. We allowed for more advanced placement, career and technical education, and also implemented the JAG program, the Jobs for America's Graduates, throughout the state. We modernized the funding formula. As I mentioned to you, our funding formula was over 50 years old, outdated and inadequate, and based on a Nevada that has completely changed from then. So to remedy this broken system, we made education funding student-based with changes such as student weights for special education. Obviously, it takes more money to educate a child who's involved in special education. We increased funding for gifted and talented. Now, think about this one for a second. In the previous budget, we allotted $175,000 per year statewide for gifted and talented students. So we were able to increase that to $5 million. We also funded categorical spending for English language learners, the Zoom schools, and we also implemented the Victory schools. Together, in the budget, that's $200 million of funding for these English language learners, as well as the Victory schools, where we identified the 20 poorest zip codes to give those children more of the resources that we need. We also made some changes to the overall system. We passed and implemented 2 monumental school choice bills, the Opportunity Scholarships and the Education Savings Account. We worked with the Broad Foundation and created an achievement school district to convert our lowest performing schools to state supervised charters. And we put up $10 million for a nonprofit organization to foster the best charter schools in Nevada. We passed pay for performance and collective bargaining reforms, and we provided incentives for young people and career changers to become teachers. That's the Teach Nevada Scholarship, and incentives for existing teachers to work in the poorest and lowest performing schools, and that has worked out extremely well. Of course, the legislative package was not complete without investment of new dollars into the system. I'm proud, and I will fight, and I promise you, I will fight to protect our revenue system that allows for this new education system to take place. But there are some legislators who are here that deserve recognition as well. It took courage. It took courage to vote for this new budget. There was a lot of opposition, a lot of verbal opposition. And as I talked to the legislators, I told them, and the Del Urquiaga used it, there was a generational opportunity. There was a window of time to get this done. And they stood up in the face of some pretty tough commentary amongst their constituencies, and they stood up on that floor and voted for that bill. So in that budget. So I want you all to give a big hand to the legislature. So the session came full circle for me, and if some of you had the opportunity to see the inaugural, I talked about in my inaugural remarks about the generations to come. And these kids that are at these schools, and if you read to a kindergarten class or a first grade class, if you visit a middle school, if you go to a high school, it's inspiring. But at the inaugural, I had asked, we had a student MC, we had a student choir that was there, we had some students perform some musical instruments. It was completely student run. And that was to allude and to let everyone know what the session was going to be like. And so we wanted to focus on building this education for the new Nevada that I love to talk about. Because as I tell these kids, you got next. But it's our responsibility to give them the proper tools to make them ready. So I know there are a lot of interim committees meeting, lots of conversations at the district level and our colleges and our universities. There are court challenges. There's an initiative petition. Parents are engaging in the debate. But the good thing is this, there is more conversation about K through 12 education going on now in my public service memory and what I believe to be the history of Nevada. So it's healthy. because that's what this forum is all about, is to have that conversation. But as we have this conversation, I ask all of you to remember, because we're in a room full of adults here this morning. And right now, there are kids sitting in their classrooms, and they're dutifully listening to their teachers at every level, from kindergarten through middle school and high school. And they're counting on us. They are. They don't have a voice. They're counting on all of us to make it right. And I hope you take advantage of this conference today to make things happen. I know this is kind of speaking to the choir here. You wouldn't be here if you didn't have this tremendous commitment to education, but there are others out there that need to share your passion, that need to share your commitment. You know most of the things that I've talked to you about this morning, but as I told that story that Dale told, you've got to be bold, and you've got to be aggressive, and you've got to be strong. You know, and I guess where I try to meet this up, I talked about America's greatest generation, and in the face of some of the most difficult challenges that we could all ever imagine, they stood up. And so we have a different kind of challenge here in Nevada, is to take a hold and embrace this generational opportunity to make education the best that it can possibly be, because our state is changing before our eyes, and we are diversifying, and we are bringing in technology companies and advanced manufacturing companies, and we have to have these students ready for this future economy that we're going to have. So you know, again, I'm asking you, you know, I'm going to need your help. The teachers are going to need your help. Everybody's going to need your help to fight every step of the way. And you know, it's one of those things, what I told these legislators, you know, we all think about what we have a chance to do, and wouldn't it be nice to be able to have your head hit the pillow every night for the rest of your life and think, I really made a difference. I really took this opportunity to bring to bear all my experience, everything that I have, to make a difference for those future generations and to build a bigger, stronger, more prosperous Nevada. So again, it really is a privilege for me to be a part of this event today. It really brings it, given during the holidays, that you would take your time to be here. And as you leave, we're all gathered here in this incredible room, but as you leave today and go to where you work and what you do respectively, you know, take that opportunity, no matter what it is, to make that difference. So in any event, God bless all of you, and God bless the great state of Nevada. Thank you very much.